So, Michael, there is only one news story that everyone is talking about this week.
Yes.
Is that right? Which is Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Oh, I was expecting a bait and switch.
Oh, no, because I've got a very serious story about this.
Okay.
Which is that Sean Penn is trapped in Ukraine. So he was filming a documentary about the Russian invasion. And basically, Penn came to Kiev to record the events happening in Ukraine. And he wanted to show the world what was happening during the invasion. So yeah, that's interesting. That's what he decided to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? Let's hope he survives, because this documentary it's guaranteed to win an Oscar in 2024 probably when it comes out.
No, yeah, it sounds like, and to be honest, I think when that happens, the invasion will have been completely worth it.
Yeah, yeah. I just love that. So when I saw that, well, there was also fucking Louis C.K. who was over there doing his stand-up. And
wow.
Yeah, maybe Vladimir Putin just isn't a fan of Louis C.K.
Maybe he was. Yeah, that's taking cancelling to the next level.
Yeah. He's like, nah, this guy can't perform at all. We have to do something here.
Yeah.
Go on, Boris. Get the tanks ready. Yeah. No, but honestly, you know what? It's great to see that Americans are over there doing their thing in Ukraine, because I feel like the one thing that this Russia-Ukraine conflict is lacking right now is the involvement of Americans. Basically, they need to get involved some way or another.
Much like Caped Crusaders, they're involving themselves in violent stuff that has nothing to do with them. Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past. We give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke. And
why are you saying this so fast?
Sorry, whenever I come out of a very gruff, affected voice, I always jump into my incredibly fast-speaking voice. But the important thing is that everybody already knows what it is I say, so I can say it as fast as I like, because it doesn't even matter if they can't tell what I'm saying, because we have an established fan base now. So, this week, we are celebrating the release of The Batman, and we're going to be looking at Batman Begins, which, as you pointed out, was kind of the introduction of this idea of gritty, dark superheroes for the many a person's cinematic palette, and that's of course something which has definitely not been done to death. So I'm looking forward to the Batman, but yeah, let's look at where it all began by looking at Batman Begins. So Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about Batman Begins?
Sure thing, Michael. And yes, we are doing Batman Begins because of the Batman. We will be doing our first Rotten Tomatoes prediction at the end of the episode. What do we think the Batman is going to get? But yeah, Batman Begins, Michael. We did Batman and Robin last week, and this is the next Batman movie after that, Batman Begins. So I'll try and do what you did. Probably won't be good either, but okay. Batman Begins is a 2005 superhero film directed by Christopher Nolan and written by Nolan and David S. Goya, based on the DC Comics character Batman. It stars Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne / Batman, with Michael Caine, Liam Neeson, Katie Holmes, Gary Oldman, Cillian Murphy, who I love in this, by the way.
Yeah.
Just say that. Tom Wilkinson, Rutger Hauer, even Rutger fucking Hauer is in this. Ken Watanabe. Did you catch him, Michael? Ken Watanabe?
Yeah, I think I did. Was he the guy who's kind of the policeman?
What?
He's like the policeman, right?
In what?
In Gotham.
No, he's.
I don't know who Ken Watanabe is.
He's Ra's al. He's the decoy for Ra's al Ghul.
Oh, okay.
See, okay. I was gonna see the reason why I asked is because you were gonna say, "Oh, he's Ra's al Ghul," and I was like, he's not actually Ra's al Ghul, is he?
Yeah, and this is my fault for not knowing actually who Ken Watanabe is. I'm not gonna lie. I thought that sounds like it could be. I was trying to place what kind of name it sounded like, and I was thinking it sounded like kind of an African name, so I was thinking it would be...
Well, he's Japanese or Japanese American. He's the guy in Godzilla that goes, "Let them fight," in the 2014 Godzilla one. Yeah. Oh, okay. That's what he's, I guess, kind of famous for. So we also have Morgan Freeman, an all-star cast. It really is.
Yeah. Morgan Freeman, my favourite Japanese actor.
Well, speaking of Japan, the movie was released in Tokyo for its premiere
have no idea why its premiere was in Tokyo on May the 31st, 2005, but it was. So June the 15th, 2005, in the United States was when it was released, all across the United States, of course. And Michael, can we have the budget for Batman Begins? Do you remember what Batman and Robin was last week?
Was it 150 million? Or was it?
I'll tell you.
Was it 150 million?
It was 160.
160, yeah, okay, yeah. Because I think I guessed 150 million.
I think that is accurate,
maybe.
yeah. So what about Batman Begins? How much did this cost to make?
I think I'm kind of thinking it costs less because, I mean, part of me thinks, like, the fact that this is like the first film means you don't put like insane money into your first film. Like obviously Batman and Robin, they had, this was an established franchise. They were like, okay, sure, it's a franchise that's done well. We'll throw 160 million into it. But I'm not, obviously I think it still costs a good amount of money. Maybe 80 million.
That's so funny. That's so funny that I explained to you. Well, how much did Batman, the original or how much did fucking Batman Forever cost? I think it was 100 million, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying this would be less than both Batman Forever and Batman.
Yeah, I should have gone for I don't know. It's just like, I guess the thing is, it just feels to me as if like, I mean, part of it is like because there's just something about Christopher Nolan. I feel like he's kind of a bit more like, he's a bit more gritty. Like I don't expect his films.
What are you
his
talking
films don't
about?
feel bombastic.
His films always have the highest budgets ever. Tenet's budget is like 300 million. It's not that high. But
okay.
it's ridiculous. But anyway, so here's the thing: you knew what Batman and Robin, and what its budget was, and of course we have had a period of 8 years between that movie.
Yeah, but I was thinking
and
like
you
it would
still
be like
guessed,
it was a disappointment.
You still guessed half of what Batman and Robin got, even though I fully expected you to guess literally this around the same, because it's 150 million. That's the budget for Batman Begins.
Yeah, and you know what the worst thing is? I still don't get a point against me because of
it's not less than half.
Yeah,
it's not less than half. It was almost less than half.
Yeah. That's what I like about these big budget films. Like, obviously, sometimes you can still, but yeah. I was going to go for 90 million, but that wouldn't have made it much better. So
okay, yeah. So anyway, give me how much it made at the box office.
Well, let's see. So Batman and Robin made, I think, like around 300 million or something like that.
It was 240.
Yeah. So I'm guessing it's made about 120. But I'm probably still going to get it quite wrong. My brain is telling me this made. I mean, this film, obviously, I think it was a success. I'm trying to place it alongside like other films of the time. I'll say this: my brain is thinking like definitely. I mean, just
guess, Michael. Nobody cares.
Okay, fine. 550 million.
Here's the thing. I'm not going to rag on you for being way off on this because the actual box office is only 373. Means, but it's not. You don't get a point because it's not more than double. Your guess isn't more than double. But the thing is, I looked at this box office and I was surprised as well because I thought that this movie, because of how good it is compared to Batman and Robin and how much of a game changer this was in Hollywood, what a revolutionary movie. All of those elements would mean that it grossed at least 500 million at the box office, but no, I'm looking at the box office, it's only 373, like I said. And I would assume it would be in line with your guess. And if we do that thing where we double the budget, which would of course mean it's 300 million in terms of the marketing costs, so the profit would only have been 70 million, which is quite shocking, really, considering how good a movie this is, and again how many movies are inspired off of this, and it's a freaking Batman movie. But of course, this really was before superheroes became mainstream. We did have the Spider-Man movies in the early 2000s, but you also had a lot of bad superhero movies in the early 2000s as well. It wasn't.
I mean,
sorry,
I was just going to say, I feel like
it wasn't until the sequel for this movie. Which of course was The Dark Knight and Iron Man that came out in 2008, and that really created this comic book heaven. This comic book heaven we are still living in now, 14 years later. But go on, Michael, what are you going to say?
I was going to say pretty much exactly like related to what you said, which is I feel like this film almost gets ignored relative to, like, in hindsight, this film gets ignored relative to the other two films. The two actual Dark Knight films. like almost, yeah, it's kind of weird. Like I feel like lots of people, even while I don't know many people who would say they dislike this film, for a lot of people it's kind of just like in the shadow of Dark Knight and the other one. But obviously it's kind of weird because, you know, that's a hindsight thing. But I guess, yeah, it kind of explains, you know, maybe if people at the time even were like, oh, I don't really care about seeing it. Yeah, it probably makes sense why it is that Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises are considered like so much more, I guess, significant in terms of like our conception of Batman.
Yeah, no, yeah.
This is where it began.
This, yeah, is where it began. Maybe the lack of gross has a part to play in the fact that not many people talk about it so much. But I think it's still, like I said, it's a very good movie. So yeah, what do you think, Michael? Did you like this movie?
I hate it. No. I thought this film was good. It was very. I mean, you know, I would even say, you know, great. It was very watchable, and obviously, I mean, part of it is like, you know, the last film we reviewed was so bad, but like it was nice getting through a film where I at no point felt like pausing, because sometimes we do these films, and especially because I know like I'm watching it as like an obligation. It can sometimes make like watching these films ever slightly less joyful, because it's like I'm watching it for the podcast, like there's that element of obligation there, and it kind of makes it feel like work. And with some films, it really does feel like work, and it's almost like I just want to procrastinate, because like I should be watching the film, but I'm like, oh, I just want to pause and like do something else, because this film is just so. It was nice having a film where I could just.
How much ADHD do you have?
I know, yeah. Well, I don't know. It's just like the thing is, we reviewed a really bad film and a really long film, so like I've had that idea of like just wanting to not be watching the film anymore in my head. But with this film, it was really nice to go into it being like, yes, I know that I'm just going to be able to sit here and actually just be engrossed in the film and enjoying the film. And indeed I was. So
yes,
that's
indeed,
very good.
Indeed I was, yeah. And I think it's a great movie as well. I really, really do. And we'll get into why. But first, of course, Michael nitpicks. How many do you have?
I have 2.
So do I. So I'll go first. So
Yes.
Bruce Wayne and his parents ride the shitty low-income public transport system instead of going to the opera in, I don't know, a fucking limo or just a Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I get why the scene is there, obviously, so you can see this public transport that his dad built, so you know his dad's a really good guy who cares about the citizens of Gotham and all that shit. But it's still just like have all these poor people and then just like the richest people in the whole city in tuxedos going to the opera. It's just a ridiculous contrast. And my second nitpick, Bruce Wayne's parents' death scene. I guess this is the same kind of scene. It is a really bad scene because first, okay, they bring you into an opera with bats, which maybe they didn't know, but okay, that's something I think they might have known beforehand, considering his fear of bats. You know, they would have checked that out. But anyway, secondly, they go out into a side alley instead of out of the front of the theatre.
Yeah.
I don't know why you just wouldn't go out the front of the theatre. Like, surely that's what you'd do, unless it was closed, but it's probably not going to be closed, is it? So I don't know why they have to go out the side alley. Well, that's it seems very, very unnecessary to me. The thing is, with the recent Joker movie, they can't go out the front when they're watching the opera, the 2019 Joker movie, of course, because there's riots going on, so they sneak out the side, and that's when they get killed. And, you know, it's some people may not like the fact that that scene is in a Joker movie, but at the same time, at least it makes sense why his parents are in a side alley. This doesn't make sense. So yeah, that's my 2 nitpicks. Michael, what are yours?
Okay. So actually, believe it or not, I had something else about Bruce Wayne's parents' death scene, which isn't any of those things, even though all of those things are completely valid, which is that killing 2 people with 2 shots to the torso from a handgun seems unlikely. Because you think about it, like something I've become more aware of recently is how most of the time when somebody gets shot with a handgun, if they just get shot once, chances are they're not actually going to die, mostly because of all this police violence we've had. Like, you see people get shot by the police, and like a lot of the time people just get shot by the police with a handgun, they survive.
Okay, can I just blow up this nitpick? I believe like Bruce Wayne's dad Thomas Wayne gets shot in the heart. Like, doesn't that happen? He gets shot right in the heart.
I mean, the thing is,
even then, if you get shot in the heart, you're dying.
No, yeah, sorry, yeah, but I'm saying like it just seems I guess. So the thing is, obviously, this isn't exactly a nitpick because of course it's possible. I'm just saying it's unfortunate if like both of them get shot, like of all the places on your torso you can get shot, that they both happen to get shot in places which like could kill them instantly from one bullet. Like none of them got shot in like the side.
So this isn't a nitpick. This is something that can happen very easily. And obviously in this situation, I don't know about his mum, but his dad definitely got shot in the heart because
it is possible his mum got shot twice because the bullet might have gone through. In which case,
maybe
getting shot twice.
Okay, move on to your next one, pal.
So my next one. is that Bruce doesn't seem to care at all about stopping or doesn't react to the ninjas starting to burn down his house. Like, I just found it weird how they're like burning it down casually behind him. He doesn't say, "Hey, what are you doing?" Like, he doesn't like react in like an angry way or like try to stop them. And obviously I realized, like, obviously if he did try to stop them, they could, restrain him or whatever else. Like, I understand, but it just seems weird to me that he doesn't even like express any objections to them like burning down his house. And it just makes him look kind of dumb when he's like stood there and like you can see them behind him like throwing petrol everywhere and setting stuff on fire, and he's just like so embroiled in this conversation with Ra's al Ghul. It's just like, oh, well, he doesn't do behind me. But
he doesn't really care that much, I guess, about Wayne Manor. I mean, he's made that clear throughout, so it's I don't think it's that big a deal to him really. But anyway, let's get into of course the concept for this movie.
Yes.
So, dark and gritty Batman, Michael. Dark and gritty. So Nolan, here's the thing, he stated his intention to reinvent the film franchise of Batman by doing the origin story of the character, which is a story that has never been told before.
Yes.
Because, of course... Okay, go on.
Well, I was just going to say, I was thinking about it, I was like, Batman is kind of like the anti-Spider-Man, because in a lot of I was going to say, like, it seemed like we were getting, like, obviously the first two Spider-Man films we got, or Spider-Man film series, we got, like, his full origin story. And whereas, meanwhile, with, like, Batman, I was thinking, like, we've only seen his origin once. Like, obviously you see, like, his kids getting shot, but in terms of, like, actually building the character up from Bruce Wayne to Batman, which you'd think is a really interesting story, it's crazy that we've only seen it once in film.
Yeah, no, you are right. We have literally only seen it once, because of course Michael Keaton's Batman. He was Batman right away in the first in the 1989 movie, and of course in this one, hey, we're doing an origin story. And the thing is, before I can't remember when I heard about this, but before Spider-Man, the 2002 movie, origin stories weren't common for characters because studio executives for superhero characters because studio executives were like, well, do we really want the audiences to sit through, do we really want audiences to sit through like an hour of, or potentially an hour of the character not actually being the character? Like that's the case with Spider-Man. And, it seems counterintuitive. Like, you go to see a Spider-Man movie and he's only Spider-Man for, maybe the last half an hour when he's properly Spider-Man. But, the character arc is key and audiences respond to it. Yes,
exactly.
And this is the case with Batman. And Nolan started doing this. He started writing the script in 2003 after the success of the 2002 Spider-Man movie. So maybe that influenced him to do an origin story on Batman. And, of course, Batman's origin story, like he said, hadn't been told before. So all these things probably contributed to it. Nolan said that humanity and realism would be the basis of the origin film, and that the world of Batman is that of grounded reality. It will be a recognizable contemporary reality against which an extraordinary heroic figure arises. So again, more of, hey, we got to keep this real. We got to try and make it as if Batman existed in the real world. Goya said that the goal of the film was to get the audiences to care for both Batman and Bruce Wayne. Again, this is a movie very much focused on Bruce Wayne quite a bit, which you would expect from an origin story, of course. Nolan felt the previous films were exercises in style rather than drama, and described his inspiration as being Richard Donner's 1978 film Superman.
Yay!
In its focus on depicting the character's growth. Also similar to Superman, Nolan wanted an all-star supporting cast for Batman Begins to lend a more epic feel and credibility to the story. Okay, so that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to ground it in reality, a complete 180 from Batman and Robin. And Batman Forever, I guess, as well, you have to say. And the studio was happy to do that, I think, considering how badly Batman and Robin had gone. And so, this is why this dark and gritty Batman could come to life on the screen. And of course, the audience, what Nolan wanted was for them to care about Batman too. Who often, if you think back to, of course, Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, does feel like a secondary character in his own movies. The last two I just mentioned, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jim Carrey were probably the main selling point, like the main attraction for those movies. And even, Jack Nicholson in the original Batman in 1989, he stole the show as Joker in the first Batman too. So this movie, again, was the first Batman movie to really, we haven't mentioned Batman Returns, I haven't seen it in forever. But, this was the first Batman movie to really make Batman, front and center, as it were.
I was just imagining like people being like a massive fan of Danny DeVito going to see Batman Returns.
Hey, Danny DeVito's a good guy, maybe.
Yeah, he is pretty good, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but no. So do you, of course, you think that's what they did on it, obviously, and that was a good move to make.
Yeah. I think it is actually, in a way. I mean, it's kind of like, obviously one of the fun things about a origin story is that you don't have to like blow your load on the best villain,
You
like
don't.
which I think is kind of a good move, and it's kind of nice to have these villains who obviously, I mean, the villains are good, but obviously it would be, you wouldn't want to do the Joker for your origin story.
No, that would be too much, certainly. And it's good that Nolan waited, but he was very keen, wasn't he? He was very keen to get the Joker involved because he already knew what he was going to write. I suspect with the Joker, and of course he produced the Dark Knight, which we will get onto some other time. But yeah, there obviously, as we mentioned, there are quite a few differences to Batman Begins and Batman and Robin. Critic Brian Orndorff considered Batman Begins fierce and demonstrative in brood, giving the film an abundance of gravitas and energy. It strays away from the lighter fare of Joel Schumacher's 1997 Batman film, Batman and Robin, which contained camp one-liners throughout. Yes.
That is an accurate series of statements.
Yes, it couldn't be more different. A massive change, a massive amount of change, and it's crazy the movies are only 8 years apart and in the same franchise. It really is when you think about it. It's so unbelievably different, and just a reminder how much like directors and the people behind movies actually do matter in how good a movie is. Wouldn't you say, Michael?
No, yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, obviously they say this is why Superman works alone, but sometimes, it matters all of the people who come together to produce a piece of media. But obviously, I mean, I guess it seems like Joel Schumacher had a lot of kind of, you can very much say that other film, Batman and Robin, I already erased it from memory, was Joel Schumacher's vision, and this was very much Christopher Nolan's vision. So I guess, you can see quite a difference in the personalities and artistic styles there.
One is gay, one is straight.
Yes, that is it.
And then
Guess
you get
which one.
the gay Batman movie, the straight Batman movie. No, obviously, that those Batman movies were a homage to the 1960s Batman, and this again is incredibly different to those 60s Batman, and is probably one of the reasons why I think this or the Nolan Batman movies were successful is it does feel like it fits in more with the actual Batman character to make it dark and gritty. And we'll talk about that in a bit, but yeah, so the dark and grittiness of Batman Begins, of course, was revolutionary. So on the film's 10th anniversary, Forbes published an article describing its lasting influence. Reboots became parts of our modern vocabulary, and superhero origin stories became increasingly in vogue for the genre. The phrase dark and gritty likewise joined the cinematic lexicon, influencing our perception of different approaches to storytelling, not only in the comic book film genre, but in all sorts of other genres as well. So, here's the thing. Dark and gritty, like we've said. Well, I'll get onto that in a bit, but firstly, the reboot, Michael. Reboot. That has become a very common word. Indeed, Batman, it got rebooted in 2005. Then it got rebooted with Ben Affleck. Now it's being rebooted again with Robert Pattinson. And of course, Spider-Man. Spider-Man got rebooted with Andrew Garfield, and then got rebooted again with Tom Holland. Yeah, so many reboots, and that is definitely part of the modern vocabulary in film is reboots or sequels as well, or as Red Letter Media said, or what was that, soft reboot? That's what they said. Yeah. And Batman Begins, really, if you think about it, this was the first time like a franchise was rebooted.
Well, actually, Luke, I think the OG progenitor was the 2001 Planet of the Apes. Remember our review of that?
Yes, but that was less a reboot, more a
reimagining.
Yeah, because the thing is, what I imagine a reboot means is like, okay, the studio recognizes that a previous project ran out of steam and is waiting a few years to do it again and start.
Yeah, whereas
fresh.
you would say like kind of there was, well, I guess obviously there was much more of a gap with Planet of the Apes things. That was
Planet of the Apes. It's more of like a remake or a reimagining, as it were.
Yeah, I think time actually is a relevant factor.
It is.
That's the big thing with reboots, which of course is hilarious. Like how you can literally get within 5 years, and sometimes more, but even sometimes less.
The same people need to be in charge, like movie producers or executives. The same people need to be in charge for the one movie, and then it's rebooted into another because they need to make the decision. Okay, we're scrapping this project and we're starting it again. And
it's like the difference between turning off and on your laptop and buying a new laptop.
Yeah, indeed. That's exactly what it is like, Michael, yes. So, the phrase dark and gritty, of course, is a common phrase now. And actually, there was another. I guess it's not a reboot because I was thinking this could be a movie or a franchise that is rebooted, and that would make it the first reboot instead of Batman, but it doesn't really work because it's a bit different. So Sean Adler of MTV stated Batman Begins heralded a trend of darker genre films that either retold backstories or rebooted them altogether. Another example he cites was it's a kind of a reboot. It came out in 2006, Michael. Another film.
Superman
franchise.
Returns.
No.
Oh.
No.
2006, eh?
Yeah, it's a very famous film character, very famous film franchise. And that was another. It was another reboot, kind of, but it was also the crucial thing. It was dark and gritty.
I'm going to go for of all of the 2006 films. I think it might have been.
Have you searched up 2006 movies?
Yeah, let's see. So I think it. Oh, was it the Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
No,
that was.
The previous movie came out 4 years earlier, and starred an invisible car. That was in that movie, the 2002 movie. Then it gets rebooted in 2006, even though it's not really a reboot because it's what happened for the past 40 years with this film franchise. You get a new.
Oh, James Bond.
Yes,
James Bond. Of course, yes.
Yes, James Bond. But the crucial
Casino Royale.
Yes, Casino Royale, James Bond with Daniel Craig. But the crucial thing is it's dark and gritty. Casino Royale is so different to I think it's Die Another Day 2002.
Yeah,
and likewise, Batman Begins is so different to.
Yeah,
of course.
I hate to say it, but Casino Royale in the list of popular 2006 films comes after She's the Man and Nacho Libre.
Well, you know what? You should have better film knowledge, so you don't need to look at shitty Wikipedia lists. Yeah. So this was a big movie, of course, the whole of Hollywood, and Casino Royale as well showed. Oh yeah, this is the direction we need to go. Dark and gritty. And if anything, studios now do too much dark and gritty like that. It has become something that is unfortunately kind of overplayed. Like this new Batman movie. The thing is, I joked about it when I saw the trailer because it's like, oh, it's a dark and gritty reboot of Batman. And of course, the whole Batman Begins started it all, and it's like we come full circle. Now we're getting a reboot that's going to be even darker and grittier, and it's just like I'm sure it'll do well at the box office. I'm sure, but I don't think people are that hyped for it because it's like, well, that's already been done. Surely, we've already seen it, and now the dark and gritty. The Batman Begins was so successful in changing Hollywood that it's now. You think things maybe could flip the other way.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, like light and campy. I would love, honestly, if they brought back somebody to just do, like, I don't know, Jim Carrey as Batman. Make it happen. Yeah,
and of course, fucking Willy Wonka. That new movie starring, what's he called? Timothy Shall I Be Gay?
Oh yeah, he's so gay.
Well, that's going to be a dark and gritty reboot of Willy Wonka. By the way, so filmmaking, screenwriters, and producers mentioned Batman Begins or the Dark Knight trilogy to describe their projects. So Jon Favreau in Iron Man, Edward Norton, Incredible Hulk. Some of these...
See, a lot of like the Iron Man one makes no sense because there wasn't like a camp version of Iron Man.
I know. So some of these don't make sense, but some of them do. So Robert Downey Jr., Sherlock Holmes, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So and then X-Men, X-Men First Class, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, definitely. That's dark and gritty. Sam Mendes for Skyfall, that doesn't really make sense because of Casino Royale. Gareth Edwards for Godzilla, that makes sense.
Mark Ward... I mean, to be fair, were the original gods... Actually, I was forgetting the Roland Emmerich version. Okay, yes, that makes sense.
Mark Webb, The Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, I mean, they tried.
I don't think so. I'm just going to say. Brian Cranston for
I feel like
Power
they tried
Rangers.
to make it... Really?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I have to say.
To be fair, considering how like Camp Power Rangers was, I guess it only needed to have like the tiniest bit of grit, and it qualified as more gritty.
Here's one: James Mangold, Logan. I guess that that is definitely dark and gritty. Then we have Blade Runner 2049, Andrew Kosovo. Again, the original Blade Runner was pretty dark and gritty. So
yeah, that's true. Yes, I know on that camp version of Blade Runner where someone gets their fucking skull crushed.
Adam Wingard for Death Note.
Oh no.
Patty Jenkins and Matthew Jensen for Wonder Woman. There wasn't a Wonder Woman movie in the first place. I guess you could look back at the original series.
I guess I was also there was I guess there was Supergirl in like the 90s.
I mean,
I don't know how camp Supergirl was, but
and obviously Todd Phillips for Joker. That is a dark and gritty reboot.
That does make sense.
Even though the Joker in the Dark Knight is dark and gritty too.
Yeah, exactly.
But certainly compare it to like Jack Nicholson or Cesar Romero, obviously yes, and then Kathy Yan for Birds of Prey.
I mean,
so again, I haven't seen Birds of Prey.
That doesn't make any sense though, because Birds of Prey is literally like a neon, like it's got loads of neon, like loads of. I mean, I'm not gonna say it is, but I would say it's more like Batman, and I actually have seen it. It's more like Batman and Robin than like Batman Begins, because it's like filled with neon and like joking and quips. It's not as bad as Batman and Robin, having seen it. But yeah, I would definitely not describe it as dark and gritty.
Okay, David Ayer's Suicide Squad. Again, that's originally
tried to be dark.
Yeah, because he wanted
that was visually dark.
He wanted that, and then the studio was like, actually, no, let's make it more fun. Then we have Lorenzo di Bonaventura, G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra. I haven't seen that one. But
I mean, again, like G.I. Joe is literally the guy goes, and knowing is half the battle. So yeah, I felt like you don't have to do much to make that less camp.
Yeah, exactly. So there are some where it's like, okay, I'm not really sure that works, dark and gritty, but there are some definite examples of, this is a dark and gritty reboot. This is more realistic. This is...
You know what?
Go on.
It reminds me of the SNL thing where it's like they do the live action reboot of Bambi. And it's like got Dwayne The Rock Johnson as Bambi, and he's like, let's go hunting, or whatever. Yeah. And he's like, deer crossing, motherfucker.
Yes.
So that's the Batman Begins of Bambi movies.
Yes. But yeah, basically this film, Batman Begins, has had a massive legacy on Hollywood, on film. And yeah, it's crazy, again, because it wasn't that successful, but maybe it was The Dark Knight which really propelled things.
It walked so Dark Knight could run. Yeah,
exactly. That is a good summary, Michael. So anyway, let's get into the plot. So, like we said, it's a dark and gritty Batman, and you can tell from the opening logos from the production companies, being in black and white. This ain't Batman and Robin, pal. This definitely isn't. So, driven by tragedy, billionaire Bruce Wayne dedicates his life to uncovering and defeating the corruption that plagues his home, Gotham City. Unable to work within the system, he instead creates a new identity, a symbol of fear for the criminal underworld. So, the movie goes, we have an intro, then we have him learning to become Batman, and the intro is his character arc, basically. And then we have him learning to become Batman, and at the same time we discover this plot involving Scarecrow and the chemicals, and then eventually we understand Ra's al Ghul isn't dead, and he wants to destroy Gotham. I have to say,
he wants to turn the freaking frogs gay.
Yes, he does. Here's why I ask, because I watched this, of course, the second time, and everything made a lot more sense the second time, because I don't think it's that easy to follow the plot very well. Like
the relationship between Scarecrow and Ra's al Ghul, like that kind of relationship, and like who's working with who, I thought was like the thing which I found the hardest to kind of, which is obviously the main thing. It's kind of like, I was like, because obviously like Scarecrow's kind of like just generically talk, like, because it's weird because we know Scarecrow is like working with the mobsters, but then he's talking about this other person he's working for, and like, is he talking about the mobsters but kind of being hush hush about it, or
Here's the thing. I think this is often the case with Christopher Nolan movies. It's maybe not explained as good as it could be, but on a rewatch, you're like, okay, all of these scenes now with these characters, I understand what they're saying and everything makes more sense. But I would think a way to make it a lot easier is just have one scene where like Batman and Alfred are in the fucking Batcave and they've got a massive screen up, and they're like they're pointing at like pictures of Scarecrow, pictures of Falcone, and saying what links this to this. And they're so it's visualizing it so everyone can see it. And I wish there was that scene in this movie. And
he wasn't doing enough detectiving. If he would have done some more being the world's greatest detective, he could have explained it to us plebs.
Well, you see him doing detective shit, but it's sometimes you're like, wait, why is he here now? And again, you look back at it and it's like, okay, I get why he's there, but it should be again, you could make it a bit clearer. That's the one thing when I was watching it for the first time, because the thing is I hadn't actually seen it for the first time, because of course I'd seen this movie before. I think this is like that would be probably my third time watching it, and I'm like, I was thinking I should be able to follow this better than I am. Maybe it was just me, but I don't know. I feel like I can follow stuff pretty well. That one scene like that would help. But anyway, so let's get into the actual script now, Michael. So we first start off with about 40 to 45 minutes of an introduction into who Bruce Wayne is and why he becomes Batman. It's a great dive into how Bruce Wayne would become someone like Batman. you try to keep it as realistic as possible. Also, you set up the main villain of the movie at the same time, and why Batman is different to Ra's al Ghul, why it's a philosophical battle as well, and it is structured well with him being, at the League of Shadows in the mountains, and then having flashbacks to the two defining moments of his life, his parents dying, and when he decides...
Bats.
Sorry?
Oh, wait, sorry.
What did you say?
I don't know why. Sorry, I know what it's. I knew the actual thing you're talking. Yeah, when he decides not to kill the guy.
Yeah, and when he decided to abandon his life, as he realizes he has to, basically understand why his parents died. Basically, understand like the criminal underworld, as it were. So first, let's focus on Bruce Wayne's journey to becoming Batman. Of course, he is depressed and comes back to Gotham knowing he wants to kill the man who murdered his parents. He's just focused on vengeance, nothing else. And of course, the guy dies anyway because Falcone's person shoots him, and because of the corrupt judge, allowing an open trial. And Rachel says it's ridiculous that Bruce is happy about it, and he shows Rachel the gun that he was going to use to kill this guy. And Rachel then, she drives underground and shows that, Falcone, who's a mob boss, I guess that's his role in these movies. He's a cancer that's infecting Gotham, and he is creating these conditions that allow crime and drugs to prosper, and he is in a roundabout way responsible for his parents' death, basically. And Rachel is essentially explaining to Bruce that these problems with like crime or whatever are systemic, basically. They don't come from like one person who's evil, and that is something that, of course, I think it's good. It's good that he learns that, because it's it is true, and he then, of course, understands that the corruption which plagues Gotham is the problem. Like, it's the thing that Rachel is doing, and the talk with Falcone afterwards, is that it shows him that the problem is bigger than him. Like, it's not just him. Like, the problem of this problem of crime is much bigger than just like, some guy shot my parents. Like, it's Falcone, and it's the drugs that are coming in. And obviously the depression and the lack of help from like the upper classes and so on, and there's a lot of talk about his parents dying, and then that really inspired a lot of people to try and help the lower classes, but now that is dying off, all of that stuff. And then of course he has the talk with Falcone, and he realizes that he doesn't know what the ugly side of life is like. The criminal underworld is something that Bruce, he has no idea about. He's no idea about this kind of life. It's a world that he doesn't understand. Like Falcone says, you always fear what you don't understand. So he has to kind of overcome that fear. And all of this like journey into, until he gets to like Asia or whatever. I like it. Like, it does touch on topics that are expansive, and it does open Bruce's eyes, and it gives you a really great understanding of his character, what he's like, and why he wants to become, or why he does eventually become Batman. So yeah, what do you think about that part of the movie?
I did enjoy it, and I thought, obviously, it's kind of funny because you always just accept the fact there's this guy Batman who runs around doing all this stuff. But yeah, it was kind of, they did a good job at kind of explaining why it is that he would end up, kind of naturally progressing from his parents die to he goes out and like starts fighting crime. Because to be honest, that is quite the big jump.
It is a massive jump.
Parents die, and yeah, they do a good job justifying it, and narratively it works. And I do like kind of where we see him, where I guess kind of the implication is like he's basically got himself locked up in a prison just so he can like fight criminals in prison.
Oh yeah, well,
I don't
we
know.
haven't talked about that yet.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure how.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, that's actually it's the first thing that happens. So
yeah, I know.
That's not addressing in chronological order. I was going to talk about kind of the messaging of the film regarding kind of crime and what causes crime. I wasn't sure if that's
sure. Go on, do that now.
Yeah. I was just going to say I think my cynical interpretation is that it's kind of like there to justify the idea that like Batman is solving these problems by beating up criminals, which of course, like, the classic, and I know this is like baby's first critique of Batman, he doesn't really, like, he isn't solving the systemic issues, and they kind of say like, well, the problem is these criminals are what causes all of these issues in society, and if it weren't for these criminals, then society wouldn't have all these problems. And it's like, well, obviously it's true that like mob bosses pay people off, but when you actually look at like poverty and systemic issues in society, it's not like mob bosses paying people off. It should be like if Batman should be beating up Elon Musk. And, so you do, I think that kind of criticism of like morality of Batman in terms of like, he's not beating up the people who actually have kind of like systemic power in society really, or, attacking them. And
well,
I think,
he does with
kind of
Falcone, and that's the key thing with why the Falcone character works in this respect, because
it's better.
Mob bosses actually do, like, it is something that, of course, it's less relevant now, and I think post like 1980s it becomes less relevant, and the war on drugs then becomes, I think a cynical interpretation is the war on drugs becomes more acceptable, as mob bosses aren't like targeted as much because they have less influence, because mob bosses did pay off politicians, and so it allows politicians to go after the quote unquote war on drugs more freely. But yeah, certainly when back in the 1960s, like mob bosses, they were part of the systemic corruption, and it gives Batman a good like thing to fight against these criminals, take them down, and then I imagine if mob bosses didn't operate in Gotham, there would be less crime and there would be less people using drugs. But the problems would still exist, of course, of crime and drugs. And it's once you get past, these big bad guys, the mob bosses, like once you get rid of them, which is what society nowadays in America, and of course over here we never really had mob bosses. But once you get past that, like what is Batman's role then in society once you get rid of the mob bosses? But this movie, of course, doesn't go into that. And to be fair, neither it doesn't for The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises.
I mean, to be fair, the problem is, like, I think it would actually be very difficult for any Batman film to really, like, fully engage with that criticism, mostly because, like, I mean, it would be genuinely interesting to see, because it's kind of like, it just so fundamentally kind of, like, breaks the logic of, like, Batman being, like, a good idea, that it would be like, I would struggle to imagine how, like, a Batman film could work if it actually fully, like, just said, this idea of a rich billionaire going out and beating up a bunch of people. I mean, actually, we should.
Well, that's why that is why that obviously in this movie he's beating up like the mob boss who's like the center of corruption. Better. So you get rid of him, okay, good. But then in The Dark Knight he's beating up like the Joker, who is like this super villain, and the same with Bane in the next one. And we'll talk about that when we ever review those movies. The elements where it is Bane maybe has a point, all that shit, but whatever.
I did want to say just real quick that I liked the line where he said the guy who killed his parents, Shill or whatever his name is, basically says like, oh, it was a crime of actually I wrote it
desperation.
Down. Crime. Yeah, it was driven by desperation. I thought that was like
that's good. So it would be interesting to see a Batman movie where there isn't a supervillain for him to take down like Bane or the Joker, and like he's taken down like the mob, and it's just like Batman in his day to day. Like, there's no supervillain to beat, so what am I doing for tonight? Well, I guess I'm just beating up poor people. But that's the thing, the movies never put Batman in a position to do that. Yeah. So, therefore, it can kind of escape that.
Yeah, that's probably the best move.
Yeah, but we understand as a society, like, the day-to-day running, what would Batman do day-to-day when, he doesn't have to beat up the Joker or Bane, just on an average Tuesday night? Well, it'd probably be like beating up like these fucking drug dealers who.
I mean, to be fair, that's what he does in the 1989 version. It starts with just like some random muggers.
Yeah, and then the fucking Joker comes in, and it's like, okay, now we can actually focus on, like, we don't have to analyze a billionaire beating up a bunch of poor people who are just scraping by because selling drugs is the only way they can actually make money. The implication is that he's got to defeat the Joker now, and then he has to defeat the fucking Penguin. And then Jim Carrey as the Riddler. Like, there's never a movie with Batman where it's just like, it's just everything's normal and he just has to... Because obviously it wouldn't be exciting, I guess. Also, it would, like, Batman wouldn't really be a superhero because then the contradictions with what he's doing would become too obvious, I think, to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, obviously, considering the narrative of this film, it's not really something that you need to focus on.
But it's in this movie, Back to Batman Begins, it's a very, I guess, liberal movie, if I'd say that, because it's about like the law and justice, and it's not about it's not about like vigilantism as the Ra's al Ghul character shows the difference between him and Batman. And it's about the law is the system that we work under, and like the Wayne family, like Thomas Wayne and Batman himself, Bruce Wayne, can be, their philanthropy can help Gotham. Like, they're never like the problem. They can use their power to help Gotham. And basically, it shows that the rich people can be good. Like, it's not like a billionaire in a city where so many people are on the poverty line. That's not the problem. The problem is that the billionaire isn't being good and using his wealth to help people. Even though philanthropy, as has been shown with a bunch of studies, is not as good as just like taxing and just grabbing that wealth to help, I guess, Gotham's underclass in this instance. But of course, that movie doesn't. And of course, you combine that with justice. The courts are fair and it's corrupt judges and not analysing the systemic issues regarding just the court system in general in America ain't that justicey, basically. All that. It is a movie which is very much a liberal movie, I guess, of its time as well. Because I think, post 2020, with the Black Lives Matter thing had become more attuned to, hey, maybe the criminal justice system isn't that great. And prosecute, because Rachel Dawson is the assistant DA, she's a prosecutor.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, prosecutors are shown to be in this movie and in The Dark Knight with Harvey Dent.
Incredibly principled and stuff.
Principled and heroic and all of that, which isn't really the case in real life as we have seen as well. So no, it is a movie of its time and it definitely has an ideology as well. But yeah, it could be worse, basically. And at least it has like these ideologies instead of fucking, I don't know, Mr. Freeze saying "Ice to see you." Like, exactly. Like, hey, that I prefer this at least. But anyway, so
just actually, you know how in like Spider-Man No Way Home, I haven't seen it, but apparently like they bring in like characters from the previous reboots and stuff.
Yeah.
Like they bring in characters from the Sam Raimi version. So they need to do that with Batman. Like Batman No Way Home, and it's just like all of these completely like characters
Clooney.
have nothing. Yeah, and then you just have like Danny DeVito shows up. Like you'd have to bring Heath Ledger back to life, which but yeah, it shows up like I am an animal.
Okay. Anyway, that'll be fun. But anyway, so back to Batman Begins. So, but on back to his character arc, Batman or Bruce Wayne. So he's aimless, of course, when he goes to Asia. Like he's seeking something, getting into fights in Asian prisons. He wants to understand what life is like at the bottom rung of the ladder. And, literally fighting in mud and getting, scraps of food and all that. It is like that Common People song, isn't it, Michael?
Yeah, he'll never understand how blah, 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 blah.
That is an interesting critique of that, and that's a legit critique. But anyway, you get why he's doing that. And because I guess he is fucked up. That's the thing. He's not doing it for fun. He's literally doing it because he's fucked. That's I guess the pillar that supports him doing this and it not being like, oh, come on, mate, you could just get out of there any time. Like, Anyway, so
if he calls his dad, he can stop it all.
That is true. He can call Alfred and stop it all, but he
literally does at one point.
Yeah, well, that's what he does when he's completed his character arc. But but he's so fucked that he needs to do this. So it's not like a jolly jape for him. Basically, that's what separates it. Anyway, so Ra's al Ghul offers for him, to join the League of Shadows, and he wants him to become an idea, a legend by having a purpose. And he realizes that's what he can do with all this anger. He can use it to fight injustice. That's his path. And yeah, it's a pretty good journey. And you really understand again why he's taken these steps and why he's become Batman. Because like you said, it's a pretty big jump, Michael, from, oh, my parents died too, I want to fight crime and dress up as a bat. But again, the movie makes the steps seem like logical. And again, the character arc is great. And I did wonder why Ra's al Ghul recruited him, why he offers him this path. Because they want to take down Gotham. And I guess with, Gotham's favourite son doing it, that makes sense. It would be very poetic. His profile fits the bill as someone who would do that. So I'm fine with that. I'm glad that and because it's like, oh, why are they taking down Gotham just as Batman becomes Batman? Well, maybe they were thinking, let's get Bruce Wayne and then we can do it. So did you get me? So yeah, that kind of thing. Anyway, so let's talk about now the differences with Ra's al Ghul or Liam Neeson's character. Because of course he's not Ra's al Ghul technically till later. Oh, he is Ra's al Ghul, doesn't reveal himself till later. So this is what separates Ra's al Ghul from Batman, and this is the key difference in the movie. So Ra's al Ghul basically is a fascist. I think that's fair to say. He said true justice is an eye for an eye.
Needs to get rid of the degenerates.
Yes, that kind of approach. Yes, it wants to cleanse everything. He says criminals thrive on the indulgences of society's understanding, which sounds like, basically straight out of like the Daily Mail or the Sun, in our country, or Fox News in America, as it were. Yeah, he thinks that Bruce Wayne's father basically is weak for what happened. That's his opinion. He was killed. Think about it. He was killed by the very thing he was trying to understand or trying to help. Like these criminals. No, they should be crushed. Like you're trying to be all nicey with them and a good liberal by giving them no. They need to be killed. Because they're criminals and they're worth nothing. And, obviously he got over the death of his wife with vengeance. That's what he says. Bruce didn't have the chance, and that's what maybe separates Ra's al Ghul, his path and Bruce Wayne's path, because once you get a taste of vengeance, that's all you want. And Bruce Wayne was denied that, and that's why he becomes Batman. Perhaps. And yeah, Ra's of course al Ghul says, the criminal mind isn't complicated, is it? It's not complicated. and like I said, just a very fascist mindset. Like, oh yeah, they're all bad people, they're evil, they must be destroyed. And that is his character. And I like it's not, I guess, the dialogue is obvious, but it's not too obvious, I guess.
Yeah, it's not like evil. It's not like he's just like, I am evil.
Yeah.
Like, to be fair, I mean, that's the thing. Like, in some sense, obviously, the fact that he's so close to Batman in terms of like their ideas, like there's only a little bit separating them. It does make him a more compelling villain.
Well, like liberals and fascists, there's just a little bit separate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
No, but of course, the difference is that Bruce Wayne doesn't kill because he doesn't want to stoop to the same level as the murderers. He understands that he has to be something better, not a murderous vigilante. That is what separates him from the people he is fighting, And again, if he killed the person who he wanted to kill, the person that killed his parents, he would probably not go down that path. But because of what Rachel said to him, and what his father believed in as well, like Rachel basically berates him for acting outside the justice system, saying that his father would be ashamed, and that does wake him up. That's like, oh yeah, no, because of this person who I respect and because of my father who I revere, they wouldn't want me turning down this path, and that's what snaps him out of it. And therefore he's like, okay, I'm going to become this, I guess, symbol of protection, and he is basically being pulled from one position by Ra's al Ghul and on the other position by Rachel and his father. He ends up basically with Rachel and his father, just with, I guess, Ra's al Ghul's like characteristics or his techniques, I guess, with him being Batman. Yeah, Ra's al Ghul influenced him and gave him a purpose, but it's not the same purpose as what Ra's al Ghul has.
Yeah,
and the purpose is what his father and Rachel had. So that's
it's
all of that. That's the thing. You can interpret all that from those opening 40 minutes and what happens throughout the rest of the movie, and it's great because it is like a philosophical battle within Batman.
Yeah.
You can see how easily like this character could have strayed down the path of just a murderous vigilante, who's just relies on vengeance and is angry all the time. But he doesn't. He's pulled back by Rachel and his dad, and he understands like, no, I'm different to the League of Shadows. But their path isn't the path for me, and it's just absolutely great character development, and you completely understand. I'll go back to that word again. You understand so much about Batman's character through that first 40 minutes. It truly is great. I enjoy this first like 40 minutes, the intro to the movie, so much. It is the best part of the movie, I think. Anything to add?
Just quickly, one thing I find interesting is the fact that obviously, like, Ra's al Ghul like trains Batman. I think it's kind of funny because obviously in the original, the 1989 films, you get this idea that like the Joker was the one who killed Batman's parents, so it's like Batman's origins lie in one of his villains in the first film. And then obviously in Joker you get the reveal that the Joker was indirectly responsible for creating Batman and there's kind of, I feel like that's the thing that Batman kind of likes, this idea of like the villain and the hero having some kind of symbiotic relationship. And obviously this time they didn't do it with the Joker, but it's kind of like a clever idea, and I think it works. I was also just gonna say really quickly on the thing of like him not killing, there's one thing which I thought was kind of not communicated, which I found interesting. Like, I've heard people say this about Batman, which is like Batman lost his parents and that makes him really sad, and therefore his motivation for not killing is that he doesn't ever want anyone else to experience the same loss he experienced. And I was kind of thinking, like, when I was watching this film the first time, there's like, I felt there was a bit of a missed opportunity where like it might have been cool if when the guy who killed his parents got shot, you found out that he had a kid. Like, I was kind of thinking, like, because I had that idea in the back of my head, because I've heard people say, like, the reason Batman doesn't kill is because he never wants anyone to experience that loss he experienced. And I was like, they could have maybe driven that home to would have had, like, some point in kind of the early film, like, in the formative moment of his character development, see him, like, wrestle with the consequences of killing somebody. And it does seem like, I guess that's the only, that's just a small issue I have. Like, I don't think you ever kind of see him deal with the consequences of it.
I prefer the philosophical battle, I have to say, between like what Rachel and his father wants and what Ra's al Ghul wants. Which path should I choose? That's more interesting rather than, this guy has a kid as well. Oh, that means I'm just as bad as him.
Martha.
It can be a bit like, I guess, corny, and it's easier to write as well, rather than like these two paths that he has to choose. That's more interesting, I feel like. But anyway, James Berardinelli, who I think talks, we had him, or I referenced him in the Batman and Robin review, said that, he applauded Nolan and Goya's work in creating more understanding into who Batman is and what motivates him. Something Berardelli felt Tim Burton's film had lacked. And I think that's true. I mean, all of those, the Joel Schumacher films as well. They never went into it And this movie, Christopher Nolan does go into what motivates Batman, why he is Batman.
Yeah.
And he fucking does a great job of it as well. So it's fantastic. It really is. So again, his actual choice to become Batman in the practical sense now, Michael. So a common idea in the comics is that Bruce saw a Zorro film with his parents before they were murdered. Nolan explained that by ignoring that idea, which he stated is not found in Batman's first appearances, emphasized the importance of bats to Bruce, and that becoming a superhero is a wholly original idea on his part. It is for this reason Nolan believes other DC characters do not exist in the universe of his film. Otherwise, Wayne's reasons for taking up costumed vigilantism would be very different. Or I guess less.
I have a hot take that bloody cinematic universes ruin a lot of characters. I've thought that for a very long time. Yeah, I do think I'm totally with Christopher Nolan on the idea of if this is just a universe where Superman and Wonder Woman exist, then him doing this in a lot of ways ruins Batman.
Him doing this is less impactful then. Yeah. Again, more focus on his character as well, and why bats. And that goes into the motivation regarding fear, and we'll talk about fear later. So it's a good choice. Again, it makes the movie better. And the thing is, of course, once he gets back to Gotham, and becomes Batman, and actually wears the fucking batsuit and everything, basically everything is explained. But it's pretty much the end of his character arc, and that is that is the shame, because the opening 40 minutes are great, but the thing that is a shame is after that there's nothing that really happens to Bruce Wayne from then on, which he needs to overcome character wise. Like I said, all the character stuff is done early on, and then after it's just about him becoming Batman, in a practical sense, and also figuring out the plot regarding Falcone and Scarecrow, and then obviously at the end, the League of Shadows infecting the water supply. His character arc just kind of stops. He's Batman, he knows what he needs to do, and he goes out and does it. And I don't know how you'd maybe rewrite that. So, he has a character arc at the end of that comes to the end at the end of the movie, because that's often better, right? Isn't it?
Yeah. I get what you're saying. Yeah, it kind of just feels like he's a bit kind of static as the film goes on. And I mean, obviously, it's kind of funny because obviously you have that line where the woman's Rachel's blah blah blah. It's what you do that defines me. And then he says that line, but the thing is that line isn't part of this development. It's just him kind of communicating that he's already he's basically just communicating who he's been since the 40-minute film.
Yeah, exactly.
The 40-minute mark. So yeah, it's he hasn't actually changed. So it's when he says that moment, it feels like it should be this impactful thing, but
we know.
No.
That's the thing. When fucking Rachel says, Bruce, your actions are what define you, when he's with the two models and he's they want to get in his car when she sees him outside the restaurant. It's and it's well, yeah, he is doing stuff. She just doesn't know, and that's the thing, because his character arc is completed. Rachel just doesn't know his character arc is completed, so it's kind of pointless that that scene happens, really, for the audience at least. So anyway, Lucius Fox, of course, has got all these gadgets, Michael, all this cool stuff.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I can appreciate, his character arc, but obviously, the practical aspects of Batman, you need to be a billionaire. And it's never acknowledged by Bruce Wayne how lucky he is to have all this on hand. There needs to be a line from him or Alfred saying, hey, he's the only one who can do this because of his access to all these gadgets. Because otherwise it just seems rather fortunate. This random guy has become Batman, and then, look at all the cool toys I can help. So, I can use to help me become Batman. It needs to be acknowledged that or that being a billionaire is why he is also able to become Batman. That is his superpower, essentially.
Yeah.
Ben Affleck made a joke in Justice League, I think it was.
About he's well, what's your superpower? It's I'm rich.
Yeah, it needs to be acknowledged. He is uniquely placed to use his privilege, I guess, as a fucking billionaire to be this. But it's this is just another part of it. This is just the next step. He gets all this cool stuff. So yeah, that's something that I found a bit it could be better acknowledged, basically. But anyway, so now runs the plot, Michael, of the movie, because he becomes Batman, and the good thing about the opening 40 minutes, it's not just a character arc, because of course Ra's al Ghul comes back, so the villain's defined, his motivations, the philosophical differences, etc. So it's not just character arc and then plot. But the plot gets going when Batman provides Rachel with evidence against Falcone after he intercepts a drug shipment and enlists Sergeant James Gordon, one of Gotham's few honest cops, to arrest him. And here's the thing. And this is one of the reasons why I think that I had issues with the plot, like I referenced a few. When we talked about the plot at the beginning of the movie,
Yeah,
Batman, he does appear to just randomly stumble upon Ra's al Ghul's plan, because
that's a good point actually.
Yeah, Falcone is bringing in these shipments of drugs, and it just so happens that one of the times the chemicals that are needed for the League of Shadows plans, are coming through the port, and of course Falcone is there because he wants to make sure that the chemicals come through the port and everything goes well. That is when Batman is there to arrest Falcone. And of course he's only there because the shipment is important. And it just seems like quite a big coincidence. Like the world's greatest detective just stumbles upon this massive conspiracy, right? Yeah. And because the thing is, when I first watched it, I was like, oh yeah, this is him showing the world, or showing Gotham, that he's Batman. Like this is just his first act as Batman, dropping in, beating up the thugs, and capturing Falcone, showing, yeah, Batman's here, guys, and Batman is going to stop crime in Gotham, like his first act. But then, he also happens to stumble upon, like I said, this massive conspiracy where there are chemicals in the drugs that turn the freaking frogs gay.
Yeah.
As you said, yeah. No, did you? Yeah, that's not.
No,
that's
yeah,
not great,
no, you're making a very good point. And yeah, like, I mean, yeah, and I think it kind of relates to what you were saying about how it's sort of like hard to work out what's going on, because the fact that Ra's al Ghul and like his relationship to Scarecrow is just kind of being referred to, and there's like all this like stuff going on, and it's kind of like, I think it does make Ra's al Ghul less impactful as a villain. So obviously there's kind of the technically, like the way it kind of makes Batman a little bit like worse because he's not like discovering it himself. And yeah, it also means like you don't get the impression, like for me, I always remember this film, like I say, having seen it when I was kind of like a kid, as the film where like Liam Neeson just shows up at the end in a way. Like obviously he's there and then he kind of just like shows up, and it's like I don't think this film has like a really impactful villain. One of the reasons for that is because there's not the sense of like Batman working out everything that's happening. Like, instead he's just like, oh, this is happening.
Yeah.
That's almost all there is to it.
You think when he intercepts the drugs shipment, I didn't think it was going to be part of the wider plot. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, when he's having conversations with Gordon and the corrupt cop who he dangles upside down, it's like, oh yeah, shit, so that drug shipment was part of the wider plot. Oh, right, okay. I had no idea. I just thought it wouldn't be. So that means he did stumble upon this, and that ain't great. So yeah, need a bit of work there. But anyway, so it'd be good to have a scene of him working out. Like, okay, so there's a separate half of the shipment which is going to go somewhere else, and he somehow works it out without just being there and seeing it randomly. So in prison, Falcone meets Dr. Jonathan Crane, a corrupt psychologist who has helped smuggle drugs into Gotham. Donning a Scarecrow mask, Crane sprays Falcone with a fear-inducing hallucinogen and has him transferred to Arkham Asylum. While investigating the Scarecrow, Batman is incapacitated by the hallucinogens. So let's talk about Scarecrow's character, I guess, Michael.
Yes.
I think firstly the performance by Cillian Murphy is incredible.
It is really good.
I think it's my favourite performance. He's so good as Scarecrow. I love him so much. And he I guess he's a really good character. And I think part of that is Cillian Murphy, and we'll talk about his relationship with the theme of fear in a bit. But yeah, got anything else to add?
Yeah. Well, I think I like, one of the things I do like with especially these kind of gritty films is like the way they will take kind of these characters that are a bit silly. Like in the I only know it from like the animated film, the animated TV series. But in the animated TV series, like Scarecrow's just some guy who like wears a Scarecrow mask, and that's it. And like, I kind of like this idea of like they introduce all of this stuff which like just adds all of this, like stuff that makes it like, okay, yeah, that's why he's like it, and how like kind of the operates.
It's realistic, isn't it?
Yeah,
he's trying to make it realistic as possible, and this is an element to do that. What would Scarecrow be? Oh yeah, he'd be a fucking psychologist. Yeah,
and I agree with you that like it is a really good performance. And he looks, Cillian Murphy looks kind of creepy, and I think that's to his advantage.
Yes, he does. So let's talk about fear now, Michael. Fear, the theme of fear. So it's a major theme in this movie, which of course supports the story of Bruce Wayne becoming a hero. Christopher Nolan stated that the idea behind the film was a person who would confront his innermost fear and then attempt to become it. Fingeroth, this is a critic, I think, referred to the film's depiction as the man with fear, but who rises above it. The theme of fear is further personified by the Scarecrow. The film depicts how fear can affect all creatures regardless of might. Allusions to fear are seen throughout, from Bruce's conquering of his demons to becoming Batman, to the Scarecrow and his deadly fear toxin. The macabre, distorted images presented in the Scarecrow's toxin-induced hallucinations also express the idea of terror to an extreme. So obviously, yeah, he plays a vital role in fear, because he literally projects people's worst fear in front of them, and it's like, oh yeah, this is how you overcome it. And I guess you get this fucking vaccine. I could see everyone's pro-vaccine in this movie.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, oh my god, yeah, actually, that's really funny. You don't see people because they literally talk about being inoculated against the thing, and no one's like.
Yeah.
I mean, we joked about turning the frogs gay, but there would be conspiracy theorists about this in real life.
Yeah. They just set off this fucking water vapor to get to fucking put this vaccine in them. Yeah. But yeah, so basically, Bruce embraces the fear when he defeats Ra's al Ghul, becomes one with the darkness, and distorts himself, of course. In that training scene where he cuts the bit of cloth, which is a really neat thing to do. I like that. You like that as well, Michael?
I know, I really did. Yeah. It was good.
Yeah, again, he becomes one of them, and he flips the darkness on he flips the darkness on Ra's al Ghul in that scene, and also of course Falcone rules by fear as well, and fear is real. That's the theme, but we have to accept it, but also overcome it, and we can maybe, if we're a fucking crime fighter, embody it like Bruce does. It's a great idea. Make the person you're going against feel the fear, because it's crazy. I guess this has been done with other Batman movies after, but you think about those criminals who are terrified of the Batman. Normally it's the other way around, isn't it? The criminals are looking for the superhero, and where is this guy? And they're not that afraid at all. And then the flip is fantastic, and that is truly a greater. So it's a great theme. I really do like it.
I like it. Yeah, it's like giving them a taste of their own medicine, and kind of this idea of I mean, here's the thing though. It kind of reminded me of this thing where you probably don't remember this at all, or heard of this, but basically a guy went on the Joe Rogan podcast and basically was saying how waterboarding is fine because innocent people won't be affected by it negatively, because the only people who get affected by it negatively are cowards, and all criminals are cowards. I don't know why, for some reason when I was watching this film, I started thinking, I bet that guy loved this film. That's it, these cowardly criminals, make them scared. And I thought, I'm glad Batman doesn't waterboard anybody in this film. But I think, obviously in reality, not all criminals are cowards, and not all cowardly people are criminals.
Well,
but
everyone feels fear though.
Yes,
that's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the idea of turning fear around upon people who cause fear is a very clever thing for him to do, and obviously works very well with Scarecrow as a villain. Yeah,
and works, of course, part of his character. He's scared of bats, so he embodies the bat. It's perfect. And for instance, Rachel, who could get killed by one of Falcone's men. She understands that, of course, but she's like, hey, I accept that, and I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to try and turn the wick up on him. And so that's a definite theme with the good guys in this movie. So Rachel, of course, is a Gotham assistant DA. She accuses Crane of corruption. He reveals he has introduced his drug into Gotham's water supply, and of course he drugs Rachel, but Batman subdues him by spraying Crane with his own chemical, then interrogates him, and he claims to work for Ra's al Ghul. And Batman then evades the police by attracting a large horde of bats using high-pitched sound to get Rachel to safety. Do you like that scene, Michael? Because I love the scene where the bats come in.
I thought it was good. And it's that's a pretty good skill. It kind of made me think of oh wait, Batman's Aquaman now about bats.
Hey, he's called Batman. He's allowed to be Batman.
And
have a bunch of bats. But the problem is, it's never used again.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that. It is a useful as a distraction. And obviously, they make a point of stressing in this film that distracting people is a very good thing to be able to do. Yeah, it's an incredibly effective thing, and it is I was kind of when that happened, one of the reasons why it was cool is because I'd totally forgotten that was a thing he did, because he never does it again. So it doesn't really make much sense he never does it again, but it was very entertaining seeing it here.
It is entertaining. It's very much so. So I want to talk about the villains now, Michael, because we have three villains. And we criticized Batman and Robin for having three villains last week with Poison Ivy, Bane, and of course Mr. Freeze. Is that so right? Mr. Freeze?
Mr. Freeze. Yeah, Mr. Freeze.
Yeah, I don't think it's Dr. Freeze, but anyway, so in this movie, there are also three villains. Falcone, Scarecrow, and Ra's al Ghul.
Well, there's also in The Dark Knight, there's three villains.
Who are?
There's the mobster.
Oh, yeah.
There's a mobster in Dark Knight.
Yeah. The mobster's a kind of a side character, though.
Yeah, okay.
He's not really a main villain, really. He's there, he's chilling, he's influencing.
Well, in that case, I submit in the third film are there three villains? There's Bane, and then there's like Catwoman. No wait,
Catwoman's not a villain.
Okay, but
Catwoman's
not a villain in that film. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, okay. In that case, yeah. Okay.
Let's see if she's a villain in the Batman.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the thing is like the in this film the mobster's like obviously, obviously he's central, but he's not like a substantial threat. So
yes.
Obviously it's pretty clear. I mean,
I just want to say how they build upon each other. The villains,
yes.
They build upon each other. So they are separate in the I guess they're not separate entirely in Batman and Robin, but the thing is, what Falcone represents, is the general corruption within Gotham, which Batman has to beat. And Scarecrow represents the fear that Batman has to overcome. And obviously the end villain Ra's al Ghul represents, the destruction of Gotham. Well, it's not really represents, he's going to destroy Gotham, and he represents, the opposite philosophical point that Bruce could have gone down, but he doesn't, which he has to beat. So they are all...
Yeah, they all have a purpose.
They all have a purpose that is crucial to Bruce Wayne, and they also are all linked to each other as well in a good way. So Falcone is linked to Scarecrow, and Scarecrow, of course, is bigger than Falcone. And then obviously Scarecrow is linked to Ra's al Ghul, and Ra's al Ghul is bigger than Scarecrow. It's not like you have Mr. Freeze and fucking Poison Ivy, who are just like, they happen to be villains at the same time.
And if anything, contradictory.
Yes.
In many ways.
Yes, yeah.
I agree with you. And I've actually always thought like this idea of like too many villains equals bad. It's quite clear that it's actually like, if villains are handled poorly. Like, I've always even thought about Spider-Man 3, which is, of course, the film which famously has too many villains. But actually, when you think about it, like, the film has time to explore all the villains.
Well, they need to be related to each other, though.
Yeah, that's the thing. But, like, obviously, I'm not going to, this isn't a Spider-Man 3 review. But basically, like, the thing is, in Spider-Man 3, I firmly believe they could have had just as many villains. And with relatively few tweaks, they could have made it work because, like,
how would Sandman relate to Venom?
Well, I mean, so the thing is, so the way they, the thing is, like, I guess what I'm saying is they don't need to relate to each other.
I'm saying they do.
The thing is, I mean, in this case, in this case, they only relate to each other.
What do you mean? Of course
Batman.
they relate to
each other through Batman, really, though, because, like...
No, because fucking Ra's al Ghul is getting his chemicals into Gotham because of Falcone.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, I get you. I mean, the thing is, they do team up in Spider-Man 3 at the end, but, I don't know.
That is not the same at all. So, it's not the same. They team up at the end. Great, yeah, just like Batman and Robin, Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze team up. No.
Wasn't it funny when Spider-Man, like, gets all the sand stuck in his shoe and he's like, where do these guys come from?
Yeah, again, that's just these random villains popping out of nowhere.
I would have liked it. Yeah, that would have been a funny thing. I would have liked if Batman said that, like when he sees like Scarecrow. I would like it if it was literally like the first time he encounters a villain. It would be, to be fair, it would be just as valid a question the first time you see one. Like, where do these guys come from? Anyway, I mean, obviously the point. I definitely agree with you that the fact that it has three villains is very well handled.
Yes.
And yes, I think that actually, just having too many villains is not an excuse to have your film be bad. Even if the studio comes up and says, we mandate you have three villains, it can be done right.
Yeah, no, it can be done right. And you need to make sure they integrate into the plot and they all play off each other and they are vital to the plot. And that is the key thing. They are necessary. And they all three are necessary to this plot. So that's what makes it good. And of course, they all represent something that Bruce Wayne has to overcome. So it's fucking great. And of course, that happens as well with The Dark Knight. Again, Christopher Nolan is very good at this. So, at Bruce's birthday party, Deckard reveals himself as Ra's al Ghul. Having stolen a powerful microwave emitter from Wayne Enterprises, he plans to vaporize Gotham's water supply, rendering Crane's drug airborne and causing mass hysteria that would destroy the city. And of course, he sets Wayne Manor aflame and leaves Bruce to die. But Alfred rescues him, because Alfred's always there for him. Again, Alfred never lets Bruce down. Okay, so a decent plan overall, I guess.
Yeah.
But... And it's a fine. I don't have a real problem with it. It's a fine ending that Batman has to stop. Because he has to destroy, or he has to save Gotham in one way or another. And this group wants to destroy Gotham because of its decadence. Okay, yeah, that works. I have no problem with it. But the issue is like the water vapor. Wouldn't it be like consumed by Gotham citizens? Because like water vapor, you don't just need a fucking incredible machine that Wayne Enterprises.
You're saying like they could put it in their kettle.
They could absolutely put it in their kettle, or they could have a shower.
Yeah, I was actually thinking like what I was thinking. I was like, this would be drinking that water would be one of those terrible times to accidentally like have the water go through the wrong hole. Like like sometimes you like breathe in and like choke on the water. You like start doing that and then you just start freaking out. You're like, oh my god, I'm dying.
Yeah, maybe there should be an increase in people in Arkham. who
Yeah,
who
yeah,
have this
that would be good
disease.
actually. Yeah, a way to kind of hint at like this is a problem.
Yeah.
Because obviously I can buy into the idea that maybe like like not every single person is going to have this happen to them. Like they could, and I mean it is a bit weird because like
You need to take an excessive amount of water vapor, I guess. So if you have like a
Yeah.
really long steamy bath, maybe that's it. Rich like housewives are getting put in Arkham at an alarming rate. Because
Yeah.
they like those long steamy baths, and
Yeah.
all the water vapor.
Batman could be investigating like a sauna.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, saunas are shutting down all over the city.
Yeah. Like I thought saunas were supposed to make you relaxed. You got like some like woman complaining.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, so again, that could be better, better done. I
Yeah,
guess, but yeah,
the ending to me, like the main thing I don't think I love about it is like it feels very hectic, but in a way where it's kind of like I don't know, it just feels like a mess, and it's kind of like also I find myself thinking like the plan of like Ra's al Ghul is to like kill loads of people, right, by like vaporizing it, but it's kind of like we don't actually see anybody like these people are all freaking out, but we don't actually really see very many people like get killed, and I was kind of thinking to myself like. It's you are left thinking.
well, they'll
would Ra's al
all
Ghul's
go
plan even
mad.
work?
He's not really killing them; they'll all just go mad, and Gotham
Okay,
will
yeah.
be like a zone where nobody goes because everybody in there will be infected by this disease, and
Yeah, okay.
it'll become like Chernobyl, basically.
Oh yeah, okay. Nobody goes to Chernobyl.
Exactly, yeah, and especially not the
Especially,
Russians.
especially not armies.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, okay.
that's what it'd be like. I guess that's his plan. But I like the Wayne Tower stuff because, of course, he wants to destroy Wayne Tower. That's the crucial part because it's the center of the city's water supply, I think,
Yeah.
or something.
Definitely not penis envy.
Yeah, it's the center of Gotham, obviously, and symbolizing how Thomas Wayne used to be the center of Gotham. Helping the less fortunate and being a pillar of Gotham. And when he died, Gotham went into decay as nobody looked out for them. Just as Thomas Wayne did. And Ra's al Ghul, in targeting Wayne Tower, well, it makes sense because regarding the plot, because it's the pillar of Gotham, if you will. And if he succeeds, it symbolizes the end of Gotham and its collapse. So that Wayne Tower being at the heart of the city is so important. And of course, it's why Bruce Wayne needs to be protected, and he becomes the new pillar of the Gotham after that, as Batman. So yeah, it's good why that Wayne Tower thing is used in the plot at the end, because it's a symbol as well. So that Ra's al Ghul has to destroy, because that will truly destroy Gotham if Wayne Tower.
The symbols are very important, as we established in this film.
They are very important. He loves his symbols. Does fucking Nolan, and that's great. Love it. Better than fucking Batman and Robin. Anything's better than that. To be fair. Which is better, Batman and Robin or Batman v Superman?
That's actually a really good question.
I think I read Batman.
I would. Yeah, well, I would be. I'm not sure. I guess I've only seen like the theatrical version the director's cut or whatever it is, like the better version of Batman and Robin. And I would say, yeah, I think that is better.
Yes.
I would be interested to, I say interested. I'm never going to do it, but I heard that the theatrical version was like worse. So maybe at that point it becomes much more of a toss up.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But anyway, so Ra's al Ghul loads the microwave emitter onto Gotham's monorail system to release the drug at the city's central water source. Batman rescues Rachel from a drugged mob and indirectly reveals his identity to her, and then confronts Ra's al Ghul on the monorail. And basically, Batman refuses to kill Ra's al Ghul, but chooses not to save him. So, doesn't kill him, but chooses not to save him. So he's not a murderer.
Well, yeah, this is a bit like, actually, we didn't even mention this, the fact that he refuses to execute that guy in the ninja place, but then ends up like exploding everybody in the ninja place.
Yes, I guess it's like, I'm not going to kill him because I'm not a murderer, we're better, but I'll kill all of
He
you.
does kill those people.
Yes.
Yeah, he also endangers a lot of people. Like there are a lot of like cars
the cops
flipping over multiple times. Yeah.
Batman is ACAB.
It's like how on earth does he like guarantee, like at some point you would think like he's just gonna have to like he's gonna have to face the reality that he's probably gonna kill someone at some point with all of these cars he's knocking over.
Seriously, given how vengeful and cops are, like you hurt one, you hurt us all that shit. Like
you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us.
Yeah, but
but not Spider-Man.
Yeah, with a fucking like vigilante gang force almost with the cops, and especially in major American cities, like Batman just flipping a couple of a few cop cars on the roof and like seriously injuring them. He wouldn't be able to work with the cops again.
Yeah, I would like to see like just a kind of closing credit scene where it's like a bunch of cops around this guy who's like got his like neck in like a neck brace, and he's like kind of all cut up and like, I swear I'll get even with the guy who did this to you, or my name isn't Heath Ledger.
Okay. Yeah, anyway, so Batman doesn't kill Ra's al Ghul because it's kind of messy. It's like, I guess he needs to die. And Batman can't kill him. Just like in a fucking Batman Forever. It's the same issue with Batman. It's like, I can't kill this guy, but at the same time, he needs to die.
Yeah, well, I need to do. I mean, like, obviously, one of the best things you can always do is the classic, like, villain accidentally kills himself, which obviously is what happens with the Green Goblin in Spider-Man.
Yes.
And also, it happens. Oh my god, it happens in fact, it happens in loads of them. Jesus, because it happens with Doctor Octopus, where he like goes after his fusion machine and gets exploded.
Well, to be fair, he's self-sacrificing. That's different.
Yeah.
You can do the self-sacrifice. The hero chooses not to save the villain, or the villain accidentally kills himself.
And Eddie Brock in Spider-Man 3 jumps after the Venom suit when it's being exploded, so he kills himself.
Yes.
So yeah, basically that's a good strategy, have like the villain kill themselves. But yeah, in this case, I mean, yeah, the problem is, I mean, one of the issues is like you said, it's like the fact that he has to die for like kind of, I guess, to give closure on the film, which of course is funny, just in that like it contradicts like the whole point of like, you know, like the thing about Batman is that he can't kill people and that should cause him issues. But in this case, he's like, oh, don't worry, I've got a way to kill you without killing you.
Yeah, he's figured it all out. So Christian Bale now, Michael, to finish off, Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne. I think he does an okay job. Like it actually, no, more than okay. It's good. You know, the thing is, he's quite mellow throughout the movie, but that's fine. I think, given like it's so hard to play Batman because the thing is, he's meant to be this tortured individual who's quite surly. Especially in these type of movies. So how do you do that charismatically and be the good guy? You know, it's tough. And I mean,
it's really hard not to think about American Psycho because he's like playing a really rich guy who's like weird and
yeah. I mean, he's fine. I think he's fine. Yeah. That's what
I like the scene where he like kicks everyone out of his house.
Yeah. That's good. But anyway, so let's conclude now, Michael. You go first.
Okay, this film is a good film. It's you know really up there as far as superhero films are concerned. It's thoroughly entertaining. The main strengths I would just say is like, I mean, it's kind of embarrassing to say, but the main strength is just like competence, like the fact that like the villains are actually kind of good and well developed, and you understand who Batman is, and like things that you'd almost think every film should have. There's like some interesting thematic points. I mean, yeah, that's kind of going above and beyond like the interesting thematic points, to be fair, and that's a genuine thing to this film's credit. The you know, action is kind of entertaining. I would say there are some kind of issues with the plot a little bit. Like, I think, you know, the kind of build up to the big end climactic scene, I think, is not quite as satisfying as it could be. And also, I think kind of like the placement of the front loading of Batman's character arc doesn't work great. And I think, you know, there have probably been more compelling Batman villains, obviously, as I'm sure we'll get into if we ever get onto some of the other Dark Knight trilogy films. And it kind of does make sense to me based on that, where this film is considered less significant. I'm thinking, you know, 7, probably a high 7. And you know, it's good, but there are a few like structural issues which I think hold it back.
Okay, I'm gonna give it an 8.5. I'll tell you that, because I think it's just a really great movie. Like you said, interesting themes, good villains who are symbolic as well. Good themes with, you know, the plot. Good themes with fear. You know, and the plot could use some work, you know, with Batman discovering stuff. Basically, if he discovers stuff more, does more detective shit, that would work better, I feel, especially with the shipment that he discovers at the beginning. If he specifically went to that shipment because he thought something could be up, then that would be better. And then the Ra's al Ghul stuff, does kind of come out of nowhere. I guess it's a nice twist, but if he figures stuff out better, then perhaps that can be better as well. So the character arc, of course, that's the main thing with this movie. This movie is really more about Batman than the other two Nolan movies, and the character arc with him in the first 40 minutes is great. Even if it's only the first 40 to 45 minutes, hey, at least it's really there, and it's really fucking good, as we went through before. I think an 8.5 out of 10 is very fair for this movie. Not as good as The Dark Knight, and maybe The Dark Knight Rises, we'll see if we ever review that, but a really great reboot. And let's see if we think the new Batman movie, The Batman, is also going to be a really great reboot, because we're going to predict for the first time this year Rotten Tomatoes scores, Michael. Last year, of course, the Rotten Tomatoes score ended in controversial circumstances because you won, and that may have been influenced by the time we reviewed the next movie, because we guessed the Matrix Resurrections Rotten Tomatoes score, and it did fluctuate quite a bit. And it did help when we reviewed our next movie, because that meant you won, because the Rotten Tomatoes score when we reviewed that next movie was closer to your score than it otherwise would have been. So yeah, I'm just saying that because I lost. I probably won't bring up that detail if I won. But anyway, let's get on to this year, Michael. Batman Begins.
Yes.
What do we think it's going to get on Rotten
Sorry,
Tomatoes?
you mean the Batman?
It's going to be 3, 2, 1. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, the Batman. So
right.
3,
okay, yeah.
2, 1. 84.
Oh wow! I didn't think you'd say that, Luke.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
It
Anyway,
must be because you're such a big fan of George Orwell.
well, we'll see who's right next week. Thank you for listening. What we do next week, Michael?
Next week we are continuing the Oscars thing, which is exciting. So we're going back to the Oscar films, and we're looking at the Judas and the Black Messiah.
Yeah, Judas and the Black Messiah. Join us for that next week. Who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael.
I've been Luke. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.